Hi, I'm Hannah Sokup, the Oral History Curator at the University of Montana's Archives and Special Collections, and today I'm going to show you how to look for archival collections on WorldCat. And WorldCat is a worldwide library catalog, so you're going to find materials from all over the world in different libraries all over the world. And so it's a great resource because most libraries have access to this, and so you can go to your local library and start searching for archival collections or any other materials for that matter and see what libraries have those materials. So let's start at what I would consider to be my local library, the Maureen and Mike Mansfield Library, and at the home page, and the URL for this is www.lib.umt.edu. And so I'm going to go over here to databases, this tab right here, and I'm going to search alphabetically by title, so W for WorldCat. And then I'm going to scroll down through the list until I get to WorldCat. Now there are two WorldCat search interfaces available through the Mansfield Library. One is WorldCat Discovery and one is First Search. I prefer First Search because I feel like there are better search options available. And you may be prompted to use your net ID and password in order to log in. So if you don't have a University of Montana net ID and password, or you don't have a Montana borrower's account, you'll need to go to your local library to get access to WorldCat. And then here is the search interface. And it automatically puts you in an advanced search. Basic search is not great because it's not going to give you the opportunity to provide some detail about what you're looking for. So I prefer an advanced search for usually when I'm searching any database, honestly. And then here's where you can search for something. So for instance, if you wanted archival collections related to the Civil War, you could type in Civil War as a keyword. And then you could go down here. One of the things that's wonderful about WorldCat is you can actually select for archival materials. So you can limit your search to just archival materials. So that way you don't get books or computer files or all kinds of online resources. You get primary sources. And so this is going to give us a lot of results because the Civil War is a really broad term. But we're going to start there just because we'd like to see what's available. And then you can click on search. You could also limit it by date range as well if you wanted, or a specific person's name. But here you'll see a lot of 51,000 archival collections or primary source materials related to the Civil War held at all kinds of places around the world. So, you know, you probably would want to narrow things down before you actually came back in here and did some looking. Some of this will be maybe manuscript materials, not necessarily written during the Civil War, but written about the Civil War. This says it's archival material, the rise and fall of Al-Qaeda in Iraq. So if you wanted to know how you ended up getting that, you could take a look and see why did the Civil War? Well, because there was a civil war in Iraq. So then you would want to modify your search terms to be the U.S. Civil War or your date ranges to be within the date range for the Civil War because, again, it's a really broad term. So, but sometimes just putting in a broad term just to see what comes up gives you an idea of how you need to narrow down your search. So don't be afraid to think broad, and then you can narrow in a little more, a little more. Sometimes putting in a really narrow search term and then getting nothing doesn't really help you figure out how to widen your search. So starting broad can oftentimes be better. So then we can type in United States. We could limit it to, you know, just to kind of encompass right before the war and then the war itself and then the aftermath. And again, we still have our archival materials selected, and then you could click search. And that's going to narrow it down to 20,000 items. But then you'll see things that are really related to the U.S. Civil War in the 1800s. So there are diaries, there are letters. And so if you were interested in looking at the William Earhart diaries, you could look and see where those are located. So they are in the public domain, so they have been scanned and made available on HathiTrust. And so a number of libraries own these. And so it's not clear from this which library holds the actual physical diaries. But the nice thing about it being on HathiTrust is you could go directly to it. And you could, if there is a full text, you could read the full text. So here's the full view for 1865. And it probably is going to take a little while to load. So there it is. And you might be able to download the entire thing, the whole book. Or you could find it in a library. So that's one way to look for things. And then if we were to scroll down again, and you can see libraries worldwide. So a lot of these things, microfilm. So a lot of places have these on microfilm. Well, that's really good news because oftentimes if things have been microfilmed, you can get it through interlibrary loan. So if you can't go visit the repository that holds the actual physical materials, you could potentially get it delivered to your public library and you could view it there on their microfilm viewers, which cuts down on travel time if you don't have the resources of the time to travel. So that's one way you can find archival collections. Now, if we go back, you can actually look for the Mike Mansfield papers. And we know that's the title of the collection, so we're actually going to select for title. Oh, papers. And then it's an archival collection. And if you click on search, there it is. It comes right up. It shows you how to link to the finding aid. You can link directly to the finding aid, which we have looked at. And then it says that 2 libraries worldwide own it. Oh, the Library of Congress has a record of it, but it's actually held at the University of Montana Mansfield Library. So, and you'll see that right there. It does have a request for interlibrary loan, but we do not loan our primary source original archival materials out via interlibrary loan. So you would either need to come to our archives to see the papers, or you would need to talk to an archivist about the possibility of getting certain things scanned or photocopied. But it's going to give you the same information that you saw at the top level of the finding aid if you watch the video on how to access and use an archival finding aid. And then you'll see these search terms or these keywords and subjects. So that gives you a general sense of the types of materials and the types of topics are covered in that collection. And you'll even see the biographical note here. And you'll see that the arrangement, so is arranged in 36 series. So using WorldCat can help you find things at your own library, but it can also help you find things that exist in other libraries. For instance, the George Grinnell papers. This is a collection that people often think exists at the University of Montana's archives, but in fact, it does not. So we have research files. There are 2 researchers in the Missoula, Montana area who've done research on George Bird Grinnell. So their research files on him are here. But the actual papers, and this is only one folder. The actual papers are not here. So George Bird Grinnell's papers are at Yale. So this is, again, another good reason to use WorldCat, because if you just assume that a repository has a collection because the person was from the area or because they went to that school, you might be surprised to find out that their papers aren't at their local archives, but they are somewhere else for for any number of reasons. The same thing with the Jeanette Rankin papers. Those are actually held at Harvard because she did go to Harvard, but many people assume that the University of Montana's archives has her papers, and so they're often disappointed when they find out we don't hold the originals. We have microfilmed copies from Harvard, but we don't have the original materials. So try out WorldCat, see what you think. It can help you find archival collections either in your local library, but also things held at other places, and then you can contact them and find out what their access policies are.